Our project is about which types of plastic are safest for microwave use based on their temperature after 1 minute in the microwave. This is our abstract describing the exact processes and reasoning behind our experiment, as well as an overview of the results. Then we have a literature review, which is essentially just all of the research required to back up our claims that we make elsewhere in the presentation. So just things about plastics leaching materials when exposed to certain amounts of heat, or when exposed to heat for certain amounts of time, and things like that.
These are the data charts. So this is the data that we collected over the course of this experiment. On the left, you can see that how the difference between the average of the experiments we did and the melting points of the individual plastics. You can see the melting points for reference on the right, and you can see all the trials we did on the bottom. This chart shows the temperatures of all the different types of plastics after 1 minute in the microwave. The blue line is the actual temperature they got to. Red line is the melting point. Sorry, no, is the difference between the melting point and the temperature. This page is our materials. Basically, what we needed to do this experiment. So the obvious ones like microwave, like plastic, scissors to cut the plastic, ruler to measure the plastic, stuff like that. And on the right, we can see the individual samples we used, 1 through 6. This is the procedure, which is how we exactly did it. So just the process we went through.
In terms of results, well, as you saw in the graph, there were certain trends, like certain temperatures or certain plastics had higher temperatures than others, and due to the melting points that varied greatly between each plastic, there were also greatly varying differences between the temperatures and the melting points. So if we move on to the next slide, we can see a couple pictures of a paper plate, one of the plastic samples that became warped after its trial, and the infrared thermometer that we used to measure temperature. And then after that, the conclusion based on the results. So we can basically determine what plastic is theoretically safest for microwave use, at least based on the data that we have here, that being the temperature and the melting point. So number 2, 4, and 6 are basically out because they had very short distances from the melting point. In fact, all 3 of them reached about halfway to their melting points after just 1 minute in the microwave, which is pretty unsafe. Then number 1, 3, and 5 had much greater distances from the melting point. Now, the actual temperatures varied between them. The highest was number 3, which is PVC, so that disqualifies that from being the safest. And number 1, as we saw in the picture, became warped during the trial. So by process of elimination, this would leave number 5, polypropylene, as the safest plastic for microwave use based on our data and extrapolation.
Thank you for listening.